Good morning. I'm Shashi Menon, and thank you for joining us today. We're here to talk about how a campus can profit from a zero carbon goal. We all know that there's increasing pressure on campuses to work towards decarbonization, which means switching fossil fuel sources with non fossil sources or low carbon fuel sources. However, we also know that often there's a price tag attached to this shift, and you have to be conscious of your budget while planning a path towards zero carbon. Today, we are here to talk to you about how you can do both. But first, some house cleaning. Please enter all your questions in the Q&A box. We will reply to them directly to you after the presentation offline. I'll be joined today with my colleague, Daniel Ciarcia, who's a senior regulatory consultant with EcoEngineers. Dan?
Thank you, Shashi, and welcome. As a means of background, my focus area of expertise is in the decarbonization, e-mobility, and sustainability in the built environment. We at EcoEngineers are fortunate to be on the ground floor of this transformation and to engage stakeholders like yourselves to enable this zero carbon transition. Our 360-degree approach is to provide universities, producers, consumers of energy with the tools for you to enable transformative clean energy projects. We believe that anyone pursuing decarbonization needs to invest in these 6 areas to effectively manage this change. Those areas are education in learning the marketplace and regulations that are driving these changes, measuring your carbon footprint, because without understanding your current state, you cannot improve it, interfacing with regulators to stay within guidelines, building assets to harness the most value based on your resources and your situation, managing your carbon compliance, and finally securing third-party certification when applicable. Doing these in a methodical manner is the best way to not only protect your investments from carbon costs, but to profit from them as well. So what does it mean to transition to zero net carbon? A building, a campus, or organization that has achieved zero net carbon is one that produces or procures enough renewable energy to meet their consumption needs. And it's important to note that when measuring and reducing your carbon, it's important to be strategic about your approach. You want to first address emissions that are created directly from your operations, and then address the energy supply chain next, and finally, understanding the impact of your vendors and suppliers on your carbon intensity.
So, why do it? There are really 2 main reasons to make a plan to decarbonize. One is reputation, and the second is profit. In today's world, carbon management is brand management. Any organization that has a plan to reduce its carbon footprint usually has a higher brand value than one that doesn't. So a campus with a plan to decarbonize instills pride and a sense of loyalty in its stakeholders, the student body, the faculty, and the general public. That is one reason to do it.
And the other side of the coin is profit. Profit is an equally compelling reason to decarbonize, and this is our primary focus today. There are several ways that an organization can benefit financially when seizing zero carbon opportunities. Nearly every organization has resources that are squandered or underutilized. We can show you how to harness these potential income streams, reduce your operational expenses, increase your energy resiliency, and minimize the financial risk. We will present you with some information on the carbon markets, which provide a significant financial motivation to decarbonize. These are some of the opportunities that exist today, potentially in your organization and on your campus. These opportunities exist across all of the different facilities that consume energy. So your electrical consumption can be reduced through efficiency upgrades and reduction of energy. And electricity used can also be generated on site in a clean, low carbon or no carbon manner through wind turbines, solar panels, and renewable gas derived from waste products. With the heating and cooling of spaces and water, there are opportunities that harness the energy and resources that you may already have within your facilities. And finally, in the transportation sector, as many of you are aware, is going through a transformation to cleaner fuels and also alternative use case models. We recently studied a variety of universities across the United States with a range of sizes, structures, and locations. What we found is that most universities do have some initiatives for sustainability and that there is clearly pressure from many stakeholders to reduce carbon emissions on campus. However, the plans tend to be fragmented or sometimes even contradictory. They lack a clear path to achieving zero carbon, and the initiatives are generally costly with long extended paybacks. Some of the other challenges and by extension opportunities that universities face in decarbonizing are staying within current with the ever-evolving and expanding carbon markets, making sense of the various methodologies for measuring and understanding the true impact, considering the myriad of technologies and financing options available to address them, tracking and adjusting for ever-changing regulations, determining the true costs and benefits, including navigating all incentives and opportunities for revenue, and finally, addressing the various needs of the diverse stakeholders.
So, profit on the road to zero carbon comes from monetizing the carbon reductions. The highest value carbon market currently is in the transportation sector. There are several federal and state regulations that incentivize the production and use of low carbon transportation fuels. And the federal renewable fuel standards and California's low carbon fuel standard lead this group in terms of overall reach and market size. However, Oregon, Washington, and several Canadian provinces also all have their own regulations, and a variety of states such as New York, New England, Colorado, Illinois, Minnesota, etc., are at some stage of enacting a low carbon fuels policy. There are also voluntary carbon markets where corporations are looking for sources of low carbon fuels to reduce their scope 1 emissions. The carbon prices across these programs vary quite a bit, and the key drivers of that variability is program type, fuel type, and project type. And in the case of California, they are actually the highest at $200 a metric ton. The key strategy for a campus is to understand this carbon market or carbon markets and incorporate them into your net zero plan.
And the three optimal strategies and methods to pursue this is to first prioritize your fleet conversions to immediately benefit from the low carbon fuel policies. Second would be to secure a long-term supply source and sell any of that excess low carbon fuel into high value carbon markets. And then the third approach that we recommend is to take advantage of local project opportunities, which tend to have lower carbon intensity overall. So let's dive into these, the high value carbon markets that Shashi just mentioned. The first one that we want to talk about is the Renewable Fuel Standard. This is a nationwide incentive program that the US EPA created for low carbon transportation fuels. This program seeks to replace an ever-growing portion of fossil fuels with renewable biofuels, providing energy security by reducing the US dependence on foreign fuels and continue the development of advanced biofuels. The tool that enables the RFS to work so well is that the program creates a tradable financial instrument called a RIN, or Renewable ID Number, which provides a highly profitable market for the fuel, an opportunity to profit from this energy source. The next program is similar to the RFS, the Renewable Fuel Standard, and it's called the Low Carbon Fuel Standard. This exists and was started with CARB in California, and it seeks to achieve the same goals as the RFS, but with a more aggressive timeline. The two programs function in different ways, though. The EPA's RFS is production-based and specifically outlines acceptable fuels and quantities. The LCFS, by comparison, is focused more on the outcome, and it seeks a 20% reduction in greenhouse gases by the year 2030. This is achieved by incentivizing the development of low-carbon fuels and leaves the fuel type open for innovation. The LCFS is being adopted in many places around the world, including Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, places on the East Coast, and others.
So let's take a look at the example of renewable natural gas, or RNG. RNG is a really effective way to have zero scope 1 emissions. RNG it's natural gas. It's made from animal manure, food waste, or municipal biosolids. And it also includes landfill gas. The value of RNG can vary quite a bit, from $13 an MMBTU on the left to $90 an MMBTU on the right, depending on the project type, the feedstock type, and the end market where it is used as vehicle fuel. These projects typically have a 3 to 5 year payback at the high end. A university could invest in the project, monetize the fuel in a high-value carbon market to recoup the investment dollars, and then redirect the fuel to local consumption years 6 through end of project life. An alternate approach, if outright project investment is not viable, is to enter into a fuel purchase agreement. And this fuel purchase agreement enables financing on the part of the project developer. The university could commit to a minimum floor price to underwrite a bank loan and use the fuel or sell it again into a high-value carbon market in the short term. Typical prices for these fuel purchase agreements for RNG are somewhere between $8 to $12 an MMBTU. This is a floor price you may have to commit to, but if you can get $90 an MMBTU for the fuel, as seen in the previous slide, you're better off selling it while the prices are high and creating a fund to finance your low-carbon, zero-carbon programs in future years. A lot of times, project developers prefer to have a fixed price option because they can count on reliable cash flows and are not dependent on policies and state regulations. RNG projects are all around us. They are the local water treatment plant, the local hog or dairy operation, and the local landfill. Food-based diversions can contribute to RNG production and can create quite some good synergies with campus cafeteria operations.
This diagram depicts how a campus or organization can achieve zero carbon. In this scenario, they are using nuisance waste products, such as manure from the dairy operation or hog raising, or biomass from the fields, and converting that to energy via an anaerobic digester for consumption on site. The energy produced could be in the form of biogas used in vehicles or in electricity used in the campus buildings. Additionally, wind and solar resources can be converted directly to electricity. On the right side of the diagram, the credits created by all of this renewable energy can be converted into cash and profits using the various carbon markets available. Due to the reduction of energy expenses, along with the high-value tradable instruments, the payback and return on these investments can be surprisingly attractive. This is an example of a project in the Midwest US. In this particular site, they installed 3 lagoon treatment tanks to process manure from local farms. The bacteria that they add and that exists in the manure turns the manure into, in this case, 145 million BTUs of renewable natural gas. This is the equivalent of taking 3,000 cars off the road in terms of the emissions. The project is actually carbon negative, in fact, and it has a secondary value with the benefit of being able to remove phosphorus from the watershed. So they take the phosphorus that's in the manure and use that for fertilizers, which diverts it from contaminating the local lakes and streams. But the power of this example is really the financial bottom line, which is listed here, the annual earnings of $2.5 million and a payback in just about 4 years.
So we have used RNG as an example to show how a campus can profit from a zero carbon goal. The same concept can be applied to clean electricity projects and other fuel types as well. However, they're not without challenges, and they do need to be managed well. Carbon markets are evolving and are very fragmented at the moment. There are different methodologies for measurement and verification. In some cases, the technology is untested, and the regulations and financing can be complicated. In order to address these problems, we recommend a step-by-step approach. Measure your campus energy footprint, conduct a cost-benefit analysis, identify key stakeholders and engage them to secure their buy-in, and talk to a lot of project developers. This is our approach to a net zero carbon future, and we're happy to work with you and lead you on the path to decarbonize your campus and profit from it.
And since this is a campus energy conference, we wanted to leave you with a little bit of homework. Here's a quick cheat sheet to see where your campus is on the road to zero carbon. If you can rate yourself in these 6 areas, that will give you a sense of what courses you need to take to graduate. So where are you on measuring your campus's carbon intensity and using that analysis to set consistent carbon goals across campus? What have you already done and where are those gaps? Are you up to date on the current regulations, technologies, and profitable market opportunities? Are you proactively managing the change in regulations? Have you surveyed your available resources to determine the opportunities for strategically directing your capital? Are you monitoring the process? And are you securing those third-party certifications to validate your activities? We want to thank you for attending this session, and hopefully you've learned something about moving towards a zero carbon campus. We look forward to hearing from you. If you have any questions or desire additional information, please reach out to us. Have a great day.